So some of you have been asking me for a garden tour. So it's beautiful out and the rain has held off. So we are going to do a garden tour. I have my faithful assistant with me. Thank you, Leland, for filming me. And I'm going to walk you through. Okay? So as you can see, that's the outside of the garden. It's pretty big. It's got a 6-foot fence around it to try to keep the critters out. We've had a really hard time with critters eating our stuff. And basically it's been a big pain in the tush, all that work, and then they come and mow stuff down. So we finally got smart and we put up a fence a couple of years ago. We still have critters, but not as bad as they were. So we ran out of some room for tomatoes because I had to have 38 tomato plants, and Handy Hubs wasn't really excited about that, but he put in 2 new beds to house all the tomatoes. So I'm gonna can the tomatoes, tomato sauce, diced tomatoes, whole tomatoes, those types of things, and be able to put them away for the winter. On the outside of the garden, you'll see horseradish. We have tons of it, and it's all over the place. So we're trying to eradicate it. So there's a bush down there, there's a bush here, right behind us. There's a bush as well. So it's a big pain in the tush. So we're trying to get rid of it. And that's why we keep doing horseradish, because we want to contain it to one spot. And this is the spot we're trying to contain it in, just in this one area. This is plenty for a household and a few extra. So we're trying to contain the horseradish. So let's go in. And I'll show you the garden. We have all aluminum beds. They're all raised beds. Every one of them are built out of this aluminum, so they'll never rot, they'll never fall apart. They don't need a whole lot of maintenance, so it works out well. We've had these raised beds for a few years now. We used to have a much bigger garden than what we have, believe it or not, and it used to be all tilled, which was a huge pile of work, and we were over it. So the older you get, the more you look for shortcuts. So if you'll look down through the raised bed and all the way around, there's lots of goodies in there. Cucumbers and marigolds. The cucumbers I'll use to pickle, and all the way back up through the marigolds are used to try to keep the rabbits out. Rabbits don't like the smell of the marigolds. Plus I think it looks pretty to put your vegetables and your flowers together. I got chives and sage. I've got oregano, and then that's a stray calendula plant from the plant that was there before. These are green onions that are ready to be picked, chives, and lettuce. And then on the other side here, again, these L-shaped beds are to try to make use of some pretty thin space. We had an extra space here where we could still get a walkway, but still be able to have a bed. So my oldest son needed to do a raised bed project for his shop class. So he and Handy Hubs built this one this past year. Very thin, but they're long, and they go the whole front of the garden. So a little added space. There's different kinds of cucumbers in here. There's dill, parsley, sage. There's eggplant right here. Take a look at the eggplant. And then take a look all the way down the line. There's dill, and there are pole beans and oregano. In this bed right here is our carrots. Lots of times in this bed we have volunteer cilantro, and Leland's gonna zoom in on one of those white flowers there so you can see. That is a volunteer onion, and they're really pretty when they flower. And then this right here is a volunteer cilantro. So all of our cilantro grows as volunteers, and if you let it go to seed after you've picked it, it will totally reseed itself and you'll never have to plant it again. So pick it, do what you're gonna do with it, and then at the end when it gets hot, like in July and August, let it go to seed and it's prolific. It'll seed itself all over the place. The next bed is our kale and second crop of cabbage and broccoli. I put in a second crop of cabbage and broccoli because I wanted to be able to take advantage of a two-season type of growing thing. So I can put in the cabbage and the broccoli super early, like end of April, beginning of May. Last year I put it in the end of March because it was so warm, and so that gives me enough time to plant again so I could get a second helping or a second crop of broccoli. So that's what we're doing here. Notice all the way around the side, I've got tomato plants, cucumbers, some more horseradish, things that I couldn't fit in garden beds, I have put around the outside of the garden. I put these little pie plates up to try to scare any critters away that decided they want to come in. The wind catches them and gives off a shiny, you know, in the sun, shiny reflection, and then hits on the whatever it is they're on, and makes a noise. So this right here is our garlic. We got about 175 bulbs of garlic in there, and all of that garlic came from last year's garlic crop. So last year's garlic crop was pretty prolific, and so I took the biggest bulbs, the biggest and healthiest bulbs, and I broke them down and planted individual cloves. When you plant garlic, you want to plant it in the fall. Usually I plant it end of September-ish, right around that area, 3rd or 4th week of September, and mulch it good, and then it'll start growing for you usually around the end of March. When the weather gets warm, you'll get garlic coming up. I will harvest these in about 2 or 3 weeks. I just harvested all the scapes and made garlic scape pesto and pickled garlic scapes. And after the scapes come on, you got about 3 more weeks after the scapes until it's ready to pick. You'll notice at the top that it's starting to get a little bit brown. You don't want it to get super brown, because if it gets super brown, then you want to pull it up out and the whole stem will come out, but the clove will stay in the ground and you'll never be able to get it off. So it should come out here in about 3 weeks. We'll lay it out to dry, and then we'll bring it in and put it away for the winter. In this bed here are beets, and we usually cut the greens, beet greens. We saute those up and freeze them for the winter, and then we pick beets. We're gonna have beets tonight for dinner, so I picked some beets this afternoon. So behind you is tomatoes. We have a huge pile of tomatoes in the garden as well as outside of the garden. Like I said, we have about 38 tomato plants of varying kinds. We have San Marzanos, we have purple Cherokees, we have Jet Stars, we have Big Boys, we have Early Girls. So we try to catch all the seasons and all the reasons why you would want tomatoes. So we're going to use those for sauce and fresh eating. And if you look down, you'll see that all of the garden is covered with this green rubber cloth. And this is just something that we were able to get that is super heavy duty and is able to totally eradicate all the weeds in the aisles between the beds. So that helps a lot in terms of weeding. The work that cuts down on is amazing. So everything has this green rubber cloth in between. I planted onion sets, so I have red and yellow onion sets, and those were planted in April. This bed here is broccoli. This is the first crop of broccoli that I planted in April. So notice here, I've got broccoli started, so we'll probably eat that sometime this week. And then I also have a volunteer garlic. So those are one of the ones that I didn't get out of the ground. And on the other side of this bed is green cabbage and red cabbage. So this one looks like it's almost ready, super close. So we use the cabbage for fresh eating. Lots of times I will put it away in our extra refrigerator and we'll have it right into December and January. And I make sauerkraut. So that head will probably be half fresh eating and then half for sauerkraut. I'll make a small jar of sauerkraut and ferment it in the jar. Down here are just some regular bush beans that I put in. Believe it or not, this row here, the chickens got into, and you could never tell. It's doing a great job coming back. Everything's flowering. So we should have beans in the next few weeks. Around the other side here are the squash plants. Look right inside here. That's yellow squash. We have lots and lots of it. And this one is another yellow squash plant. And then here is a zucchini plant. I don't know if you can see any zucchini down in there, but there's zucchini plants around there. And in this bed are peppers. So we've got a couple different kinds of peppers. We have Portuguese hot peppers. We have bell peppers. We have purple bell peppers. And then we have red and orange peppers. I'm having an issue because I don't know if I'm going to get any peppers this year. Take a look at this. All the way down here on this leaf, this is what a lot of the leaves are doing, and then they're dropping off. So I did a little research, and it looks like I might have some sort of a bacterial wilt of some nature, and it makes the whole plant die. So I've already pulled out 5 plants. I'm not sure I'm gonna get any peppers this year, which is a super big bummer, but I can keep hoping. And then last bed is the same. It is zucchini and bush beans on the other side. And then there's a row of wax beans in there. And this is also the asparagus bed. So when the asparagus are done, I plant on top of the asparagus bed so that I can get the maximum out of the garden. The asparagus is done usually in May, and that's prime planting season. So take a look around my garden, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer for you.